You get angry because your heart lacks sufficient compassion. You are troubled because your mind isn't expansive enough. You worry because your wisdom isn't clear-sighted enough. You suffer because your resolve isn't resilient enough. You waver because your thoughts aren't sufficiently clear. You feel envious because you don't believe yourself to be excellent enough. Every sadness, every fit of anger, every disappointment is not our enemy, but merely quiet signals from within. They tell us that our inner self is constricted, our heart is weary, and there's a hidden corner in our mind that needs illumination. Each affliction that arises is a gentle reminder that there are still fragmented pieces within us that we haven't healed yet. If we calmly approach and listen, we will see that afflictions don't come to deplete us, but to help us grow. Life is inherently impermanent. Everything comes and goes like a stream flowing over rocks on its way to the ocean. Humans are no different, sometimes full of energy and faith, other times exhausted and confused by uncertainty. On your heaviest days, you will realize a truth. Few people say aloud that there are paths we must walk alone. We walk alone not because no one loves us, but because some challenges are meant solely for our soul. Learn to stand firm on your own. The soft murmur of a stream somewhere deep in the forest, the wind blowing through the leaves, the thin, delicate sound of a meditation bell, all seem to invite us back to our inherent stillness. When you close your eyes in this moment, you will see an open space forming right within your heart. No struggling, no clamor, no one rushing you, only you and your breath rising and falling steadily. It is in this space that one finds the courage to look back at oneself and ask, what truly causes me pain? What makes me lonely? What prevents me from letting go? Everyone will experience days of impasse. Work pressure can sometimes make you want to give up. Love can sometimes hurt you so much you don't know where to pick yourself up from. Some people leave before you even have a chance to say goodbye. Some dreams are broken before you're ready to let go. There are also moments when you sit in a crowded coffee shop, yet your heart feels empty, as if the whole world has turned its back on you. But then you will realize that you are not as alone as you thought. It's just that it's been too long since you talked to yourself. Being alone can make your heart a little sad. Being alone can sometimes make you feel weak. Being alone can make you silent in the face of pain, not knowing who to share it with. But being alone is also an opportunity to embrace yourself and whisper that no matter what happens tomorrow, you must keep trying. When your heart is warm enough, a little loneliness is no longer daunting when you understand that no one can walk with you for an entire lifetime. You will learn to rely on yourself more. Those who gave birth to us will also grow old. Those who love us sometimes have to leave according to their karmic connections. Only we ourselves can never leave ourselves for a single moment. Letting go is not losing anything. Letting go is taking down the burdens that have weighed us down for too long. When your mind expands, your wisdom brightens, and your resolve strengthens, you will see that the things that once tormented you are not as terrifying as you thought. Every wound is a lesson. Every stumble is a milestone of growth. The path back to yourself is the most peaceful path, because there we learn to love, understand, and be gentle with ourselves. Today's video is a journey like that, gentle yet profound. It is a journey that the enlightened Dharma channel wants to take you on, back to your inner sanctuary, a peace that has never been lost, only sometimes obscured by too many worries. When you are ready to embark on this journey, everything will become clearer than ever. Now, let your heart lead the way, and together, let's begin the path back to ourselves. There are evenings when the sun sets and the wind gently touches the leaves, and we suddenly wonder why life is filled with so much distress. Sometimes we think it's because others hurt us, because work is too heavy, because life pushes us too fast. But when we look deeper into the nature of things, we will see that, like the cycle of a leaf falling to the ground, every emotion within us also has its cause and its own cycle. Impermanence is always present in every moment, in every breath, in every small vibration of the soul. What comes also goes. What is born will also perish. Afflictions are the same. They do not last forever, as we mistakenly believe. They only linger when we cling to them too tightly. The more we try to chase them away, the more they cling to us like a shadow in the midday sun. But when we stand still, look directly at them, they suddenly become light, like a cloud drifting across the sky. Someone once said that suffering is not terrifying. What is terrifying is that we don't understand why we suffer. When we don't understand, we resist, we blame others, we ignore ourselves, and then we are lost in our own labyrinth. But if we are willing to stop, willing to open our hearts, willing to look deeply into the root cause, we will realize that afflictions always contain a gift. This gift is often wrapped in challenges, sometimes in tears, sometimes in smoldering disappointments. But when we peel back all the outer layers, we will see that it is a lesson that helps us grow and return to ourselves. In Buddhist teachings, the mind is likened to the root of all emotions. When the mind is calm, the world is calm. When the mind is agitated, the world becomes precarious. People often think that afflictions are caused by others, but in reality, they are a mirror reflecting our own limitations. You get angry because your heart lacks sufficient compassion. You worry because your wisdom isn't clear-sighted enough. You blame others because there are still hidden corners in your heart that haven't been healed. When the mind is not expansive, afflictions feel restrictive. When the mind is not clear, confusion thickens like clouds covering a mountaintop. We always look outside to find a culprit, but we forget that the only place that can truly untie all knots is within ourselves. Humans are naturally emotional beings, so carrying grudges, anxieties, and sadness is very natural. We are not wrong to be sad, nor are we bad to get angry. All of it simply shows that we still have empty spaces waiting to be heard. When we find ourselves easily irritable, that is when the compassion within us is calling us back to learn how to embrace. When we fear something, it is a sign of a lack of self-confidence. When we react hastily to anything, that is when we need to learn to stand still and observe. Afflictions are not enemies. They are the knocking sound of consciousness, reminding us that something inside needs to be re-examined. And when we know how to listen, we will realize that afflictions are the quietest, most patient, and most subtle teachers that life sends us. The Enlightened Dharma channel wants to tell you a small, very ordinary story that contains a great lesson about the mind and how afflictions arise. One afternoon, Sister Hoa's grocery store was busier than usual. People came and went bustlingly, calling out loudly. The sound of children arguing outside made the atmosphere noisy. Sister Hoa had been tired since the morning, and unresolved family matters kept her mind restless, feeling as if someone was pulling her back. Her husband called to say he couldn't pick up their child, and a morning delivery order had a customer complaint, making her feel like she was about to explode. While she was trying to reorganize some newly imported crates of goods, a boy, about 7 years old, walked in. The boy was mischievous, active, and his curious eyes darted from one thing to another. For just a minute, she wasn't paying attention, and the boy swept his hand into a large basket of candies she had just carefully arranged, spilling the entire basket onto the floor. The sound echoed through the crowded store, making Sister Hoa's head feel like it would explode. She turned around, and anger flared within her. Her heart felt like it was burning, all the day's frustration building up, as if waiting for that exact moment to burst forth. She opened her mouth, ready to scold, but at that moment, her eyes met the boy's. A look of panic, hesitation, and fear from a child who knew he had caused trouble but didn't know how to fix it. That look made her pause. Her anger was still there, but it naturally weakened, like a burning flame being gently blown by the wind. Sister Hoa took a deep breath, clearly feeling the air enter her body and the tension in her chest subside. Instead of scolding, she knelt down, picked up each candy wrapper, and gently said, "It's okay, dear. I can pick them up." The boy, standing nearby, quickly apologized repeatedly. But Sister Hoa just smiled and said, "He's just a child. As adults, we should be compassionate." As she said that, she herself was surprised at how calm she could be. The strange thing was, as soon as she finished speaking, a lightness spread through her heart. It was so light that she felt as if a heavy burden had just been lifted from her chest. If her anger had burst out then, it might have made her feel satisfied for a few seconds, but immediately after would have been regret and exhaustion. But because she stopped in time, because she breathed in and out, because she chose to look deeply at a child instead of at his small mistake, she transformed the affliction into a moment of peace. Later, each time she remembered, she always wondered what made her so calm. And she realized it wasn't because the boy was faultless, but because she saw clearly in that moment that anger wouldn't solve anything. If her heart were expansive enough, big problems would become small. If her heart were narrow, small problems would become big. The affliction didn't come from the boy dropping the candy basket, but from the lack of compassion within her. At that moment, when she returned to her breath, the chain of negative reactions immediately stopped, and her mind brightened like calm water after the wind. Scriptures once taught that the mind is like a lake. When the lake is stirred by waves of emotion, the reflection of the sun is distorted and warped. But when the lake is still, the sun appears clear, beautiful, and complete. The Buddha also said, "No one can hurt us if we do not carry the seed of hurt within our own minds. Others only touch what is already present in our hearts." Understanding this, we will no longer chase after every wave of affliction, but will learn to keep our minds calm, like a lake. Clarity always lies beneath the murky layer. We just need to be patient and let the water settle naturally. And when we understand where afflictions come from, we will know how to transform them. One of the simplest ways is to return to our breath. Many people think meditation is something very distant, very difficult to do, or only for monastics. But in reality, meditation begins the moment we are aware of our breath. Breathe in to recognize the emotions arising. Breathe out to release the burdens clinging to the mind. Just that is enough to help us stand still amidst life's many pushes and pulls. The breath is the simplest anchor we can turn to at any time. When the mind settles with each breath, wisdom will shine like a calm body of water after the wind. You can try a small exercise when you feel yourself becoming annoyed, confused, or angry. Instead of reacting hastily, place your hand on your chest and breathe very slowly. Breathe in, knowing you are having an emotion. Breathe out, knowing that emotion is not you. Breathe in, looking deeply into the root of that emotion. See what makes you uneasy. Breathe out, gently letting go of resistance, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. When you do this, you will realize that afflictions are not as powerful as you think. They are only strong when you turn your back and run away. But once you face them with a calm mind and gentle breath, they will dissipate like morning mist under the early sun. Life always presents us with many challenges and afflictions. Afflictions are just one type of challenge. But if we know how to look with the eye of wisdom, we will no longer see afflictions as obstacles. We will see them as doors opening up new chapters for the growth of our soul. When we are easily angered, we are invited to learn compassion. When we are anxious, we are reminded to let go. When we are sensitive to the words of others, we are shown that our inner confidence is not yet strong enough. And when we know how to listen to these calls, we will see that afflictions are the clearest mirror reflecting ourselves. Thanks to them, we see where we need to change, where we need to be gentler, where we need to be gentler with ourselves. Perhaps the most important thing the Enlightened Dharma channel wants to convey to you is that peace always resides within you. You don't need to go far to find it. You don't need to become someone else to feel complete. You just need to accept that you will sometimes be angry, sometimes sad, sometimes feel small and fragile. Then you embrace yourself like a mother embracing a crying child. At that moment, afflictions are no longer a burden, but an opportunity for us to turn back, to understand ourselves better, love ourselves more, and live more lightly. May you learn to stand still amidst change, know how to use your breath as an anchor, and know how to open your heart so that everything becomes clear. May you look at afflictions with kind eyes, so that each day that passes is no longer a flight, but a journey home to a peaceful heart. There is a truth in life that sooner or later, everyone will have to face. The journey of growth always comes with moments of solitude. Just like the leaves of late autumn must detach from their branches to begin a new cycle, humans too must sometimes step away from the embrace of others to confront themselves. Everything in this world operates according to the law of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. Joy can change over time. Loved ones can leave for various reasons, The things we once clung to can vanish in an instant. When we understand impermanence, we no longer resent or cling. We simply accept in silence and learn to stand firm amidst that change. Being alone in those moments is not a sign of unhappiness, but proof that life is taking us to a deeper level of maturity. In Buddhist teachings, solitude is often not seen as negative. Only when the mind feels empty and cold do we call it loneliness. But when we are alone, yet still have a source of inner peace, when the heart is warm and self-reliant, that is precious stillness. Being alone does not mean being lost. It is a state in which we get to rest. When we are not swayed by the words of others, not caught up in external noise, the mind has an opportunity to return to its most natural state, like a lake after a storm has ceased its waves and begins to clear. Being alone is when layers of emotions are clearly revealed for us to recognize. Being alone is when we are allowed to be vulnerable without fear of judgment, allowed to cry without hiding anything. And most importantly, it is when we listen to the small but profound whispers of our heart. Many people fear being alone. They fear the empty feeling at night when they enter a quiet room. They fear the feeling that no one understands them. They fear the thoughts that rush back too quickly when there's no one to talk to. They fear facing the hurts they haven't had time to heal. They fear the loneliness they often try to avoid throughout life. But the truth is, being alone is not as scary as we think. Isolation is when we close off our hearts. Being alone is when we open that door to see ourselves more clearly. Isolation makes the mind weary. Being alone nourishes the mind. Isolation makes us afraid. Being alone helps us grow. As long as the heart is warm, we are never truly alone, no matter where we are. Humans often attach their emotions to external circumstances. When others are present, we feel safe. When we lose our support, we feel disappointed. But true support does not lie in someone outside of us, but within ourselves. Others can give us joy, but cannot give us lasting peace. Others can help us be stronger for a period, but they cannot overcome our deepest, most silent challenges for us. To keep our minds from wavering, we must first learn to befriend ourselves. Then, stillness becomes a source of strength. Silence becomes a sanctuary for the soul. And the state of being alone becomes a gift that life bestows. There's a gentle story filled with contemplation that the enlightened Dharma channel wants to share with you. The story of a young girl from the countryside who moved to the city to find work. Her 20s were like many others, filled with hope, but also countless anxieties. She rented a small, cramped room, just 12 square meters, with old walls and a small window looking out onto a dark alley. The first few nights, her heart felt cold. The city was crowded, yet why did she feel so lost? Every evening after work, opening the room door revealed a profound silence. She turned on the light, but the illumination wasn't enough to dispel the loneliness swirling in her chest. Some nights, she would eat instant noodles and cry, missing home, the warmth of her mother, the sound of her father's voice, the rural kitchen always filled with the aroma of freshly cooked rice. Alone in the big city, she felt swallowed up. But then one day, after crying herself tired, she looked around the room and realized that she herself was making everything seem darker. The room wasn't cold. her heart was. The space wasn't empty. Her mind was. She suddenly realized she couldn't live forever in such dullness. She decided to calm down and change the way she viewed life. Instead of fearing the silent space, she began to learn how to make it more comfortable. Every evening, she brewed herself a hot cup of tea. As the steam rose, she placed her hands near the cup's rim to feel its warmth. She cooked simple meals for herself and sat down to eat slowly. She replaced the old curtains, placed a small potted plant next to the window, and bought a warm yellow lamp to make the room cozier. She also developed the habit of talking to herself, not with loud words, but with thoughtful, understanding thoughts. She asked herself what had made her tired today, and she soothed herself after a stressful day. She learned to recognize the small, beautiful things that were still happening, which she had previously overlooked. Each time she washed dishes, she felt the cool freshness of the water. When sweeping the floor, she noticed the sound of the broom gliding. When sitting and drinking tea, she felt the gentle aroma spreading into her soul. The room gradually became a place where she felt protected, no longer a prison for loneliness, but a place to heal the small hurts of youth. Time passed, and the young girl naturally found that being alone was no longer frightening. Being alone helped her learn to comfort herself whenever she was disappointed, to take care of herself when sick, to get up when she stumbled at work. Being alone also helped her appreciate her relationships more, because she knew that no one else was responsible for filling the empty spaces in her heart except herself. She understood clearly that family love and romantic love are precious, but they are not the only things to rely on. The greatest support is a heart that knows how to heal itself and a mind that knows how to stand firm. Being alone taught her self-reliance. Being alone taught her to quietly observe life without quick judgment. Being alone strengthened her in silence. When accustomed to being alone, we become more resilient. Not resilient in the sense of forcing ourselves, but the soft resilience of those who know their own limits, know how to rest, and know how to pick themselves up. We also become more composed, not overly worried when a relationship ends, not overly afraid when starting something new, not overly impatient for someone to understand us immediately. When the mind is stable, we are no longer easily drawn into the surrounding clamor. And that composure is the foundation of freedom. In the Dhammapada, it is said that self-conquest is greater than conquering others. And one who can conquer oneself is one who knows how to live quietly without losing one's inner self. One who knows how to dwell in solitude is the one with the greatest strength. External circumstances do not disturb the heart. Others' words do not stir the mind, just as a calm lake is not disturbed by the winds of life. The Buddha once taught that whoever knows how to return to themselves in stillness will find an unshakable joy. These teachings do not advise us to detach from life, but to keep a stable sanctuary within ourselves, no matter how life changes. If you want to practice the art of living alone, you can start with a very simple exercise. Every day, set aside 10 minutes for complete stillness. No phone, no music, no conversation. Just sit quietly and feel. Feel the breath going in and out. Feel your heart beating. Feel your shoulders tense or relaxed. Feel whether the emotions arising are peaceful or chaotic. Don't try to force your mind to be still immediately. Let everything unfold naturally. If your mind is busy, let it be busy, then observe where it's going. If your mind is sad, observe the sadness without resistance. Just 10 minutes like this each day, and you will find your mind spontaneously becoming more stable. 10 minutes of silence can become a sanctuary you rely on whenever your heart wavers. 10 minutes of stillness will gradually become the most stable anchor within your inner self. When you know how to live with stillness, you will see that being alone is actually a beautiful state. Being alone to listen to your inner voice. Being alone to let go of the pressure to please everyone. Being alone to nurture dreams that seem small but are very real. Being alone to see that you too deserve to receive love from yourself. And when you have learned to love yourself in moments when you are alone, you will no longer fear losing anyone. The love of others becomes a precious gift, not something that is mandatory. Your freedom begins at that moment. The Enlightened Dharma channel wants to send you a small message. Being alone is not a sign that you are weak, but proof that you are learning to grow on your own 2 feet. Don't fear evenings where only your inner voice keeps you company. Don't fear days when no one stands beside you. Don't fear moments when the whole world seems to turn its back on you, because it is precisely in those moments that you are returning closest to your true nature. Believe that you're strong enough. Believe that your heart is warm enough. And believe that being alone is not an empty space, but a silent space for you to plant seeds in your soul. When you understand the art of living alone, you will walk lighter on life's path. Not rushed, not afraid, not dependent, not clinging, just gently like water flowing with its natural current. May you find silent strength in every moment of stillness, and may being alone become a place where you find a peace that nothing can take away. In this life, everyone will eventually have to face a very simple truth. But not everyone is calm enough to accept that people come and go in our lives, like water flowing through our fingers. We cannot hold on to even a single drop. Everything is changing every second, every minute. And it is this impermanence that makes us realize that life is a journey, that every living being must walk on their own 2 feet. No one can hold our hand for an entire lifetime. No one can walk our entire long path for us. And no one can live a complete life for us. This truth, when we were young, we often thought was just philosophical talk. Only when we experience hardships, when an important person is no longer by our side as before, do we understand that impermanence is not far away. It is right in this every breath. Every morning, we wake up and see a new day passing, just like the shadow at our feet. As soon as the light changes, the shadow also changes without our permission. Impermanence is the nature of everything. And the path of life, in reality, can only be walked with self-reliance, not dependence. When we look back, we see that human life is a journey that begins in solitude. We cry our first cries, small and weak, bringing no possessions, and no one from a past life accompanying us to this one. That is the beginning of the human journey. Then, one day, when the last breath leaves us, we also depart this world alone. No one sees us off. No one escorts us to the final path, except the karma and actions we have created. Buddhist teachings call this a simple truth that cannot be denied. Coming alone and leaving alone is an unchangeable law. But between those 2 points, we mistakenly believe we can cling forever to someone to combat loneliness. We cling to our parents for care. We lean on loved ones for support. We rely on friends, colleagues, partners to feel like we are not lost. But then everyone has their own life, their own worries, their own journey. When it is most necessary, we realize that no one can help us overcome the storms within our hearts. People often fear loneliness, not because of emptiness, but because they fear facing themselves. When there is no one else to rely on, we are forced to look at the dark corners of our minds that we have always avoided. We are forced to learn to take care of ourselves, stand firm, and take responsibility for everything. It is at that moment that we realize that dependence from habit has made us weaker than we ever imagined. The Buddha taught that the greater the mind's clinging, the greater the suffering. People suffer because they expect someone not to leave. We hurt because we think the love of others is eternal. We feel disappointed when familiar shoulders are no longer present. But all these things are just natural occurrences of life. Nothing is outside the law of birth and decay. Those who come to us all carry a lesson. Those who stay teach us love and appreciation. Those who leave teach us letting go and growth. The presence and absence of each person are karmic connections that we must learn to be grateful for instead of blaming. Deep in our souls, everyone has a stage where they thought someone would always be there to care for us, protect us, embrace us. But the nature of life is change. Relying for too long makes us forget that our own feet can also walk steadily if they are trained. Young people often fall into confusion when they have to manage things on their own for the first time. That fear is not because we are weak, but because we have never truly tried to stand alone. Only when life pushes us into experiences that force us to be self-reliant do we realize that true strength lies within us, not in the presence of someone else. In a small hamlet on the outskirts of the city lived a devoted motorcycle repairman named Tan. He led a simple life with his mother, who was nearly 70 years old. From childhood, he was accustomed to his mother preparing every meal. His clothes were all washed by his mother, and their small house was always kept sparkling clean by her. When he came home from work, all he had to do was sit down, and there would be hot rice and sweet soup. This life made him feel like he could rely on his mother forever. Even as an adult, he maintained the habit of letting his mother handle every small detail. Many people around them looked on and thought he was fortunate to have such a loving and capable mother. But he himself didn't realize how dependent he truly was. One Monday morning, before the sun had fully risen, he had just opened his repair shop when he received a call from a neighbor reporting that his mother had fainted at home. He rushed back in a panic, carried his mother to his motorcycle, and took her straight to the hospital. The doctor informed him that his mother was suffering from severe exhaustion due to old age and overwork, compounded by insufficient nutrition. Upon hearing this, his heart clenched. He looked at his mother's thin, bony hands and felt a surge of anguish. The tasks he had never touched, it turned out, were the burdens his mother had silently carried on her shoulders for so many years. From the day his mother was hospitalized, his life was turned completely upside down. He had to work, manage her medication, clean the house, and cook for himself so his mother wouldn't have any additional worries. Seemingly simple tasks, like preparing breakfast or doing a load of laundry, left him flustered. But then, with effort, he began to learn little by little. The first time he cooked rice, he burned the pot. The first time he did laundry, he stained a whole batch of shirts. The first time he cleaned the house, he was so tired, he collapsed. But with each passing day, he realized he was gradually changing. He learned to observe more, listen more, and love more mindfully. During his overnight stays at the hospital, he would sit watching his mother sleep and wonder why he had lived nearly half his life without knowing how to be self-reliant. Just a small incident had left him disoriented. And from that emptiness, he understood something he had never contemplated for years. His mother could love him boundlessly, but she could not be with him forever. At some point, the person he loved most would also have to let go, according to the laws of life. Humans are born solitary, and the journey of growth must be walked alone. No one can shield us from all storms. No one can live through our most difficult days for us. When we rely on someone for too long, we forget that our own feet also know how to walk and how to be strong. The day his mother recovered and was discharged, he brought her home with unspeakable joy. But what was more special was that he was no longer the man he had been before. He no longer waited for his mother to clean the house. He personally prepared every meal. He knew how to care for his mother properly and was more confident in everything. His mother looked at her son and smiled. She knew that her son had finally grown up. He understood that some lessons only appear when life forces us to stand up on our own. No one can teach us strength better than the challenges we must overcome with our own 2 feet and hands. His mother stayed to teach him to love, while that incident became the one that left, teaching him to let go of the habit of dependence. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a saying, "Be a light unto yourself, and walk your path." The meaning of this teaching not only reminds us of self-reliance, but also reminds us not to seek salvation from external sources. Buddhist teachings always guide people to return to their inner self, because only we ourselves can understand what we need, what direction is suitable, and what lesson we must learn. Apart from us, no one can take a single step for us. The Anguttara Nikaya once mentioned that each person is their own soul and supreme refuge in this life. Therefore, if we keep searching for an absolute companion, we will always be disappointed because no one can keep the promise to stay with us forever. When we understand this, we realize that self-reliance is not about proving our strength to the world. It is a way to be free. When we know how to take care of ourselves, overcome fears, and heal our wounds, we are no longer bound by dependence on anyone else. We are no longer confused when someone leaves. We are no longer afraid when life changes. Our mind becomes lighter and more peaceful, because we know that whatever comes is a necessary karmic connection, and whatever goes is a lesson to be learned. Self-reliance is a way of living that helps us not lose ourselves in any circumstance. When we are no longer dependent, we truly live fully in inner freedom. If the listener is currently in a phase where they must face everything on their own, try a simple exercise. Every morning when you wake up, take a few minutes of stillness to breathe deeply and ask yourself 3 things. First, what specific action can I take today to care for myself a little more? Second, is there anything today that I must confront that I've previously avoided? Third, in these difficult tasks, what can I do right now with my own hands without waiting for anyone's help? When we know or think these things aloud, our minds will become clearer, and from that, the habit of self-reliance will form. This small exercise helps us understand that every problem can be solved if we start with the first step. And there's a gentle message that the enlightened Dharma channel wants to send to the listener. Life does not make us walk alone to punish or cause us suffering. Life only wants us to grow. When we learn to walk on our own, we truly appreciate the value of those who walk with us, even for a short distance. When we learn to stand firm, we truly cherish the hands that hold ours in sincere moments. When we learn to walk on our own 2 feet, we realize that the greatest freedom is freedom within the mind. Even if you feel lonely today, believe that you are on a journey of growth. Every step of self-reliance is a seed of peace being sown. And one day, you will look back and understand that it was precisely those moments when you had to bear the burden yourself that shaped you into the strong, mindful, and free person you are today. Life inherently operates according to the law of constant motion. Time flows silently, bringing changes that sometimes we cannot grasp in time. There are days when we think we understand everything, but just a small incident can shake our hearts. There are times when we think we have overcome a series of difficulties in life, but immediately a new challenge appears, confusing us. This is the nature of impermanence, where nothing stays in one place. No one stays with us forever. No job is absolutely stable, and no joy or sorrow lasts eternally. Understanding this law, we quietly realize that every experience that comes to us is not a punishment. They are bricks laid one after another to build the path of growth that everyone must walk. In life's cycle, people often want things to go their way. We wish for stable careers, enduring relationships, and good things to last a little longer. However, the universe operates in its own unique way. What comes, comes at its right time. What leaves carries a message that sometimes we only have the peace of mind to look back and understand much later. Therefore, every experience, whether beautiful or challenging, is a gentle reminder that we are still growing, still learning to be stronger every day. In every adversity, we learn patience. In every loss, we learn to let go. In every step we take alone, we learn to return to ourselves more deeply and more mindfully. From a Buddhist perspective, everything we experience arises from conditions. There are conditions for meeting, and there are conditions for parting. There are conditions for beginning, and there are conditions for ending. When an event occurs, no matter how much we try to force it, we cannot completely change it. That is why the ancients often said, when an event arises, one can only accept it. Not accept it passively, but accept it with composure and wisdom. When we understand this, we will no longer view adversity as a disaster. We see them as great waves of the ocean that can shake us. But after overcoming them, these very waves temper us into people who can stand more firmly amidst the storms of life. The human psyche, when facing difficulties, is often very similar. We easily fall into confusion when what we believe to be stable collapses too quickly. We worry about the future. We fear losing our anchor. This is natural. It's an instinct in everyone. No one is born strong. No one is inherently aware of the law of impermanence. Some people take years to understand a lesson. Some need a very significant event to reflect on themselves. But whether the time is long or short, everyone will eventually come to the realization that every challenge is a mirror reflecting our true nature, helping us see clearly where we stand and what we need to change to move forward. When we dare to accept the truth that life does not operate according to personal desires, our hearts spontaneously become softer. Only a soft heart can be flexible, adapting to all circumstances without breaking. Mr. Min's story is a prime example of this. Mr. Min worked for 7 years at a company he believed he would be with long-term. 7 years is not a short time. 7 years were days of waking early, staying up late, striving to complete every project. There were stressful meetings, times he quickly ate a lunchbox just to meet deadlines. He poured so much passion into that job that he never thought one day everything could disappear. Then the company declared bankruptcy, a sudden decision that came so fast he didn't have time to mentally prepare himself. The day he left the office with a small box of belongings in his hand, he felt as if the world had cracked open. He returned to his familiar rented room, sat down, and his heart felt empty. He felt as if he had been pushed out of the stable life he had worked so hard to achieve. His next 2 months were filled with crisis. Some mornings, he would open his eyes and have no motivation to get out of bed. Some nights, he would stare at the ceiling and wonder where he had gone wrong. Sometimes, he doubted his own abilities. Sometimes, he blamed life for being so harsh. But life wasn't treating him badly. Life was just asking him to reevaluate, adjust, and move on to a new stage. It wasn't until the exhaustion passed that he realized he couldn't just lie there waiting for a miracle. He got up and enrolled in a new course, entering an environment that was both confusing and exciting. He started learning from scratch, learning how to immerse himself in a new field, and also learning to open himself up to things he had never tried. A year later, he found a better job with a more stable income and an environment where he truly felt valued. At that point, he looked back at his past hardship with completely different eyes. He gently smiled and said, "It turns out that loss is also a setup for us to grow." If he hadn't lost his old job, he probably would have stayed in his comfort zone forever and never known how far he could go. He understood that sometimes the things that hurt us in the present are the doors that open to better things. That experience taught him that no adversity is meaningless. Every event that happens carries its own message, and only when we are calm enough can we see it. In Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha once taught that everything in the world arises from conditions. When conditions are sufficient, things come to be. When conditions are exhausted, things dissolve. It's not because we did something wrong, but because the natural flow of the universe has reached a point where it needs to shift. The Buddha also emphasized that patience is the foundation of wisdom. One who knows how to be patient with circumstances will not be led astray by emotions. One who knows how to be patient with adversity will not hastily judge life. Patience is not insensitive endurance, but a silent, inner steadfastness, the ability to stand firm amidst life's upheavals, to see everything with clearer eyes. When we are patient, our minds expand. When the mind expands, wisdom blossoms. And thanks to that wisdom, we clearly see that every experience is training us to become a better version of ourselves each day. If you are going through challenges like Mr. Min once did, try to give yourself a little space to practice this small exercise. First, find a very quiet place. It could be a corner of a room, a chair, or a porch in the early morning. Take a deep breath, then gently exhale. As the breath enters, let your mind return to the present moment. As the breath leaves, release the tensions you are holding. Close your eyes and place your hand on your chest, feeling your heart beat. Ask yourself, what is hurting me the most right now? When the answer appears, don't rush to reject or judge it. Look at that emotion with compassion. Finally, silently tell yourself that you are ready to accept everything that happens as a new lesson in life. Just a few minutes each day, and you will find your heart lighter and your spirit more stable in the face of change. The Enlightened Dharma channel just wants to send you a very small but very sincere message. Life always has a very special way of teaching us to grow. No challenge comes without carrying a gift. No stumble comes without containing a lesson. If you currently feel lost, believe that this is just a stage to help you become stronger and wiser. Be patient with your journey and believe that you are on the right path. One day, you will look back at everything that has passed with peaceful eyes and smile, because you didn't give up. You deserve better things, and life always knows how to bring them to you at the most opportune time. There are philosophies in life that everyone seems to know, but only after going through half a lifetime do we truly understand them. We hear a lot about impermanence, a lot about the transient nature of human life, but only when we face adversity and loss. Do we realize that life is like a wisp of fragile smoke? We are born empty-handed, and will leave this world with those same empty hands. We cannot take money with us, nor fame, nor the things we once clung to with all our stubbornness. Yet, most of our lives are spent accumulating, possessing, and stubbornly holding on to things that sometimes don't even touch our hearts. When we look at the cycle of human existence, we realize a simple truth. All the things that make us tired are not the burdens of life, but the burdens of our own minds. People keep chasing many things because they think the more they have, the more at peace they will be. But the truth is quite the opposite. The more we have, the more we worry. The tighter we cling, the more insecure we become. The more we compare, the more we hurt ourselves. The more we want, the more we suffer, because we cannot keep everything. The Buddha clearly pointed out that the root of all suffering is craving and clinging. Craving makes us desire excessively. Clinging makes us hold on to what we should let go of. Both these things make our minds restless and our lives heavy. Every day that passes, we find ourselves racing after unreal things. Fame is unreal. Praise and blame are unreal. Winning and losing are also unreal. All of it is just like bubbles on the surface of a lake. Just a gentle breeze can make them vanish. Yet we let these fragile things dictate our emotions, control our actions, and then pile on invisible pressures that we ourselves don't even realize. It's not by chance that the ancients said, "The simpler the mind, the more peaceful the life." This simplicity is not about lacking, nor is it about forcing oneself to live austerely. Simplicity means knowing what to keep and what to let go of, knowing what nourishes the soul and what is disturbing the mind, knowing what is important and what merely disperses our energy. The truth is, the more we grow, the less we find ourselves suited to noise and clamor. We yearn for a quiet space to sit with ourselves. We yearn for the gentleness of a hot cup of tea, a breezy afternoon, or a sleep undisturbed by worries. But to achieve that peace, we must learn to declutter our minds, just like cleaning an old house. There are things that have long lost their meaning, yet we still try to keep them, thinking we'll regret letting them go. We do the same with emotions. We hold on to unhappy memories because we are familiar with them. We cling to tiring relationships for fear of change. We store unnecessary responsibilities simply because we don't want to displease anyone. We pack too many things into our lives until one day we realize our minds no longer have room to breathe. To help you understand this more clearly, let's look at the story of Mrs. Lan. A gentle story, yet it contains a profound lesson about letting go and simplifying for a lighter mind. Mrs. Lan lived alone in a small house on the outskirts of the city, not too spacious, but not too cramped, just enough for her to live out her golden years. However, over time, the house became increasingly cluttered, not because the area shrunk, but because she kept old items as a habit. A box of handwritten letters from her youth, several worn-out clothes that she kept thinking she might need someday, gifts from friends and relatives from decades ago for holidays. From the kitchen to the bedroom, every corner had objects stored for reasons of memory or just in case. Her son, whenever he visited, would gently mention that the house was getting crowded and moving around could be dangerous. He advised her to declutter for more space, but she would just smile and wave her hand, saying that each item was a part of her memories. To discard them would be like discarding her own past. Moreover, living alone in a house full of memories made her feel less lonely. Her son didn't want to force her, so he only told his mother to be more careful when moving around. Until one rainy evening, Mrs. Lan decided to go to the kitchen to get a light jacket because a cold wind was blowing through the window. As she walked, she accidentally tripped over an old box placed in the walkway and fell to the floor. Although she wasn't seriously injured, the fall left her aching all over, and it took her a long time to get back up. As she sat catching her breath, she looked around the dark room. Old boxes piled high seemed to block even the light. A suffocating feeling made her mind reel. She wondered why she kept so many things. Did these items still have any value? Had they helped her current life in any way? Did they make her happier? She realized the answer was no. They only made her spend more time cleaning, left her with less living space, made her trip and risk injury. And most importantly, they made her cling to too many old stories, keeping her mind always living in the past instead of the present. The next morning, as soon as the rain stopped, Mrs. Lan opened all the windows to let fresh air flood the house. She stood looking at each item and silently told herself that it was time for a change. She opened each box, picked out the things she no longer needed, and stacked them in a corner to give away or discard. Each time she let go of an item, she felt as if a burden was being lifted from her heart. There were some letters she reread and smiled. Some mementos made her tear up. But she knew that holding on to them forever would not bring back the past days. She decluttered for one day, then another. When she finished, the house felt twice as spacious. Light poured in, and the air felt lighter. She sat down, drank a sip of tea, and suddenly felt her mind also as light as the wind. She had truly let go of the old things that had clung to her for so many years. From then on, Mrs. Lan lived more freely. She kept only what was truly necessary. The remaining items were given away without a hint of regret. She told her son that when the house is airy, the mind is also airy. By reducing unnecessary things, she could see more clearly what was truly important: health, peace, joy in the present, things that seem simple but are the core of life. Mrs. Lan's story is like the mind of each of us. The mind is like a house. If it contains too many things, there's no room for light to enter. Old sorrows, unhealed disappointments, excessive desires, comparisons of gain and loss, self-imposed pressures, all are old, clutter of the mind. If we don't clean them out, they will accumulate, making our lives heavy. Many people suffer not because life makes them suffer, but because they stubbornly cling to things that have lost their karmic connection, their value, their usefulness. The truth is, whether life is light or heavy depends on whether we choose to hold on or to let go. The more we let go, the more peace we find. In the scriptures, the Buddha once taught that the body is like a boat crossing a river. Once you have reached the other shore, you must know to leave the boat behind and continue walking. If you keep carrying the boat on your shoulders, the journey ahead will become exhausting. Similarly, the things we are holding on to may have been useful at some point. But when circumstances change, when the mind has grown, we must ask ourselves whether those things are still necessary. If not, be brave and put them down. Those who study Buddhist Dharma are always reminded of the true nature of all phenomena. Everything is conditioned to arise and then to dissolve. What comes will go. What happens will pass. People will meet and then part. When conditions end, accept letting go. No clinging, no forcing, no treating anything as permanent. We only hurt when we try to hold on. Just like grasping sand in your hand, the tighter you squeeze, the more sand slips away. The more you fear losing, the easier it is to lose. But when we open our hearts, open our hands, holding everything lightly, we will find our minds much more at peace. In modern life, letting go and living simply are becoming increasingly important. We face too much information, too much work pressure, too many expectations to be better, smarter, more successful. But what is success for if the mind is always exhausted? What is money for if we cannot sleep peacefully at night? What is the use of a grand house if our heart always feels empty? Living simply does not mean living in scarcity, but living with just enough. Enough to breathe, enough to be at peace, enough not to lose ourselves in the whirlwind of fleeting things. If every night before going to bed, we spend about 3 minutes reflecting on ourselves, we will clearly see what needs to be let go of that day. Those 3 minutes can be a moment of stillness to examine our emotions. Am I angry with anyone? Am I dissatisfied with anything? Am I holding on to a small sorrow that I haven't named? Am I holding on to an unreasonable expectation that is pressuring me? Did I say anything that made someone else sad? Those 3 minutes are when we listen to our mind most truthfully, when we realize something is no longer necessary. We can let it go in that very moment. Let go in the mind first, and actions will follow. Just 3 minutes a day, and our mind will be less cluttered. Over time, that lightness will cultivate a habit of peace. And then, we just want to send you a very gentle reminder. Life is not inherently overly complicated. We ourselves make it more complicated with the expectations, desires, and comparisons we place on our own shoulders. Give yourself the right to live lighter. Practice letting go of an item, a fit of anger, a hurt, a pressure. Each time you let go of something, you will feel your mind open up a little more. And who knows, one day you might realize that the peace you've been searching for has never actually left you. It was just obscured by too many things you held on to. When you live simply, peace will naturally find you. When you let go, happiness will bloom in your heart in the most natural way. As we quietly observe the flow of life, we will notice a truth that sinks deeper as we grow older. Everyone carries a private sky within their heart, with sun, rain, peace, and storms. From the outside, we might think someone is living a very joyful life, but no one knows what they are enduring inside. We look at a life that seems calm, yet it contains so many ups and downs, impermanence in every breath, and joys and sorrows changing without warning. Therefore, the only thing we can give each other in this vast world is kindness born from the heart. A compassionate glance, a sincere inquiry, or a small act can be a beacon of salvation for someone's darkest day. When we realize this, we understand that compassion is the cool water that washes away so much suffering in the world, and also the light that illuminates our own soul. People often think it's difficult to change another person's life. However, sometimes even a very small act of care is enough to move the heart of someone in despair. In Buddhist Dharma, compassion, to be, is the root of all goodness and the purest essence of humanity. The Buddha taught that compassion is like light shining into darkness. Even a small ray is enough to dispel the darkness. It doesn't need to be grand or showy. Simply cultivating a good intention is enough to sow the seed of peace. And miraculously, when we do something good for someone, the first person to feel happy is us. Because when we give, our heart opens. When it opens, we are healed. In modern life, people easily become cold due to facing too many pressures. Everyone is busy, everyone is stressed, everyone is struggling with their own fears and expectations. When subjected to too much hurt, people often withdraw to protect themselves. But the tighter the heart closes, the harder it is to feel warmth. In reality, It's not that we are callous, but that we have allowed pain and defensiveness to obscure the good part of ourselves. That is why the Buddha taught that spiritual practice is not just about meditating or reciting scriptures, but also about the ability to keep the heart soft amidst adversity. A compassionate heart never hardens with age. A heart that knows how to love itself and others always has light. There are times when we feel we no longer have enough energy to love anyone. But that doesn't mean our heart has dried up. It's just tired and needs to be healed. And the most effective way to heal is not to receive, but to give. A word of thanks, a smile, a small act of help. Each time we open our hearts like that, we mend our own scratches. Compassion does not make us weak. On the contrary, it demonstrates the greatest strength of the soul. Because to maintain kindness in a challenging life, we must possess great courage. The courage not to seek revenge, the courage not to harbor anger, the courage to understand others instead of judging them, the courage to love despite having been hurt. Perhaps you've heard the saying that people connect with each other through their hearts. When the heart is expansive, everything becomes easier to breathe. When the heart is narrow, everything becomes heavy. Compassion helps the heart expand. And thanks to that, we face life with a gentler attitude. Every suffering can be soothed if we know how to look with eyes of understanding and love. If someone hurts us, we can look deeply to see that they are suffering somewhere in their mind. If someone behaves badly, it might be because they have never received love and thus don't know how to give it. When we look with compassion, we are no longer drawn into resentment. We understand and accept, and it is that acceptance that brings peace. To help you feel the power of compassion more clearly, let's look at the story of the hot porridge vendor outside the hospital gate. A simple story, but one that leaves a deep impression on many. Outside the gate of a large city hospital, a group of people had been maintaining a charity porridge stall every morning for many years. They appeared very early, before the sun had fully risen. The pots of porridge were cooked with complete sincerity, not out of idleness. Some had families to care for. Some were busy with work. Some had declining health. Yet, when they thought of the poor patients, the family members who had to keep vigil all night, or the elderly who had no money for breakfast, they found the motivation to continue. Among those who came for porridge every day was an old man, thin, with worn-out clothes, silver hair, and kind eyes. Everyone was familiar with his image, appearing very early, sitting quietly in a corner, waiting for his turn. He spoke little, but always bowed in thanks when he received a steaming bowl of porridge. Looking at him, everyone felt as if they were seeing the image of their own parents. His diligent appearance, tired eyes, yet still striving to live each day, moved people with sadness. Every day, he came regularly. Even on rainy days, his clothes soaked, his worn sandals slippery with water. He still came. Someone asked him why he didn't buy food somewhere more convenient. He just smiled kindly and said he had no money. The porridge here not only filled his stomach, but also gave him the feeling that someone cared. That was what warmed him. However, one day when the charity group set out their porridge pots as usual, they didn't see the old man. At first, they thought he might be tired or had overslept. But when a whole week passed without seeing his familiar figure, everyone became worried. A woman in the group decided to ask around the lodging area where he lived. She searched and finally found a landlord. The landlord gently said, "The old man passed away a few days ago from a serious illness. Perhaps he had been trying to endure for a long time, but didn't have the strength anymore." Hearing that, the woman burst into tears. When she returned and told the rest of the group, everyone fell silent. No one thought he would leave so quickly. Everyone suddenly understood that the small bowls of porridge they cooked every morning might have been the last warmth he received in life. That day, the charity group cooked porridge with a very different mindset. A heavy silence hung in everyone's hearts. But then that heaviness transformed into gratitude. They were grateful that they had been able to offer the old man those last bowls of porridge. They were grateful that their seemingly small act could carry such great meaning. And they promised each other that they would continue the porridge every morning, not for him anymore, but for other people who were also waiting for a little warmth in this cold world. That story makes many realize that kindness is never meaningless. A small act can become a miracle for someone. A hot bowl of porridge can soothe a weary day. A kind gesture can save a desperate soul. And then we will understand that giving is how we leave a gentle footprint on this life. No need to be grand, no need to be magnificent, just sincere. The Buddha taught that compassion is the shortest path to happiness. Because when we have loving kindness, we do not create bad karma. When we have compassion, we know how to love without calculation. Loving kindness helps us open our hearts. Compassion helps us empathize with the suffering of others. The combination of these two creates a soul richer than any material possession. The Buddha once taught, "Keep your mind like cool water. Wherever you go, soothe the places you touch." If everyone knew how to live with such a mind, the world would have much less suffering. To cultivate compassion in daily life, you can start by practicing a very simple exercise. Every morning before starting a new day, take a minute to place your hand on your chest and silently acknowledge the beat of your heart. Then, make a silent vow that today you will slow down a little, listen a little more, and be a little kinder. Just 1 minute, but it can change the way you see life. When you meet someone who is irritable, try to understand instead of getting angry. When you see someone tired, offer them a small act of care. When someone needs help, help within your means. These ordinary things are how we sow the seeds of compassion without having to do anything grand. There is one thing I always want you to remember. Compassion is not something born for others to enjoy, but a gift that helps you live happier. When you are kind to someone, you will feel a warmth spreading in your heart. When you help someone, your mind will expand. When you live with a kind heart, you will be much more at peace, because deep within the heart of every human being is an infinite potential for love. Just give it a chance to shine, and your life will change. I hope that by the time you hear this part, a little warmth will arise in your heart. No matter how much life exhausts you, remember that as long as your heart remains gentle, you can still make this world a more breathable place. Let compassion guide you. Let kindness be the light in every step you take. And believe that when you give good things, you are sending love back to yourself. There are moments in life when we suddenly realize that all the things we tried to avoid eventually return to stand before us, like a large mirror, reflecting all our fears, all our wounds, all the things that couldn't be put into words. Life inherently operates this way. The more we run from something, the faster it catches up to us. The more we wish something didn't exist, the more it finds a way to knock harder on our hearts. This is not punishment by fate, but the law of impermanence, the law of cause and effect, a law that everyone must go through to grow. When we look deeply into the nature of life, we will see that nothing lasts forever, nor will any pain remain eternally. Everything is merely flowing, changing, dissolving and forming, forming and dissolving, like water slowly flowing under the faint light of dawn. And in that flow, humans learn to grow through adversities they sometimes wish they never had to touch. The Buddha taught that life is a sea of suffering. But the sea of suffering is not meant to drown us, but to remind us to learn how to swim. Every difficulty, every challenge that comes to us is not to make us fall, but to help us realize the true inner strength that lies dormant within us. When we face the things that hurt us, when we dare to touch the truth we have long avoided, we will understand that suffering is not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing is fleeing from our own emotions, because the more we run, the more tired we become. The more we avoid, the greater the pain. The more we pretend everything is fine, the more our heart becomes compressed to the point where it can no longer breathe. People often think that being strong means not being weak, not shedding tears, and having to brace oneself against life's adversities. But the greatest strength is precisely the ability to confront the truth, to confront fear, to confront one's true emotions, to confront the most difficult things to accept. Because only with the courage to look directly can we begin to heal. Acceptance is not surrender, nor is it giving up. Acceptance is the first step to overcoming. It is the courage to stand firm. It is the growth that comes from understanding what we still lack, what we still need to learn, what we still need to turn inward to illuminate. The human mind often desires everything to go its way. We want things to run smoothly, every effort to yield beautiful results, every endeavor to be recognized. But life is not always so gentle. There are times when, despite our best efforts, the outcome is not as desired. There are times when we believe we understand everything, but just a small incident can shake our hearts. Humans grow through opposing circumstances, through unexpected falls, through days when we have to ask ourselves where we went wrong, what we lacked. And it is these seemingly vulnerable moments that open the door for us to see our true inner strength. Amidst this chaos, there is a very real, very relatable story that symbolizes the ability to confront and accept. It is the story of a young university senior who had always been known as an excellent student since childhood. She always topped her class, was always among the best, and always received praise from teachers and friends. In everyone's eyes, she was the epitome of complete effort. But then one day, when the results of an important exam were returned, she was stunned by the score displayed before her eyes. The score was much lower than expected. Not only low, but so low that she had never experienced anything like it throughout all her previous years of study. Her heart felt as if it were being squeezed. A surge of disappointment arose. Her pride wavered. All the hopes, all the confidence, all the expectations instantly became a silent void. She didn't tell anyone, didn't share with friends, didn't seek advice from anyone. That afternoon, she sat alone on the school stairs, watching the last rays of sunlight fall in long streaks. She asked herself if she had failed. Was she still herself? Was one score enough to define everything she had worked for? And then, as the sadness settled, she realized that whether she wanted it or not, this had already happened. Avoiding it wouldn't change the result. Sadness wouldn't make the situation better. Collapsing in silence would only make her more tired. And at that moment, she chose something that not everyone has the courage to do. She chose to confront. She reopened her exam, not to blame herself, but to understand what had happened. Each question, each theoretical section, each part she had missed. She realized she hadn't lost her ability. She had just been careless. She had been complacent, thinking she was already good enough and didn't need to study too thoroughly. Her failure was not a punishment, but a lesson to remind her of humility, of the spirit of learning, of the importance of practice. She accepted that score, accepted the truth that she had made a mistake, accepted that her past excellence didn't mean she would always be excellent. She accepted that to go further, she needed to look at herself more truthfully. And from there, she started over, not blaming herself too much, not tormenting herself, not trying to appear falsely strong. She relearned from the beginning, little by little, every page of a book, every concept, every exercise she had once taken lightly. She became more humble before knowledge and before herself. In the next exam, she achieved a high score, not because of luck, but because she understood that confrontation is the key to healing. Acceptance is the first light that leads us out of darkness. She realized that avoidance only prolongs pain, while confrontation, though difficult at first, helps us find lasting peace. That story is not just about the student. It is the story of all of us. Because everyone in life has faced something that caused them pain, a failure, a broken relationship, an irreplaceable loss, a missed opportunity. We often try to ignore it, trying to think that everything will get better with time. But the truth is, time only helps us forget if we accept. If we avoid, time only allows the pain to accumulate in our hearts, turning into a deeper new wound. In Buddhist scriptures, it is taught that to overcome suffering, one must first clearly see that suffering. See to understand, understand to transform. When we understand the origin of sadness, we no longer fear it. When we understand the cause of failure, we no longer blame ourselves. When we understand the nature of impermanence, we no longer cling to what is lost. That is the wisdom of enlightenment in daily life. No grand ritual is needed, just the courage to face the truth. Sometimes, just a slow breath is enough for us to realize that everything can heal if we no longer resist it. And if you are hearing these words, perhaps somewhere in life, you too are facing a difficult truth. Perhaps you are standing before a door that frightens you. Perhaps you are carrying a pain in your heart that you cannot name. Perhaps you are trying to forget something, but the more you try to forget, the more you remember. If so, give yourself a moment of peace to breathe. Sit down, Listen to your heart with sincerity. Look directly at what is hurting you. No need to be strong in a hurry. Just have enough courage to admit that your heart is vulnerable and that you need to heal. To practice the ability to accept, you can try a very simple, small exercise. Find a quiet space, sit down, place your hand on your chest, and take a deep breath. As you exhale, ask yourself a gentle question. What is hurting me right now? Not to delve deeper into the pain, but to understand yourself better. Write that down on a piece of paper. Write slowly. Write gently. When you are done writing, look at the paper as you would look at a friend who needs to be embraced. Then tell yourself, I accept that this is happening. I will learn to move forward. Just that is enough to make the heart feel a little lighter. I want you to remember that acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is courage. Confrontation is not pain, but light. When you dare to face the truth, you no longer fear it. When you accept, you open the door to healing. Life doesn't demand you to be perfect. It only hopes you are true to yourself, and then all good things will find their way back. You just need to be patient enough, loving enough, listen to yourself enough. Because on the journey back to yourself, we don't need to conquer anyone. We only need to conquer the fear in our hearts. And when that happens, you will find your heart as vast as the sky after the rain, clear, spacious, and filled with hope. In this life, there is one thing that everyone will realize on their own when they have enough experience. The more upheavals one goes through, the more clearly one understands the value of goodness. When young, we often think that kindness is naivety. We think patience is a sign of weakness and compassion is a disadvantage. But the older we get, the more we taste the joys and sorrows, the ups and downs, the more we realize that these seemingly soft qualities are actually immense inner strength, like soft water that can wear down even hard rocks. Gentle kindness is sometimes what helps people overcome the storms of life and maintain a pure heart. This life inherently operates according to the law of impermanence. Everything changes, and nothing lasts forever. When we understand this change, we no longer wish to compete or compare ourselves with anyone. Because what we consider important today, tomorrow might just be a leaf falling onto the surface of a lake and sinking into stillness. Some people hold grudges their entire lives over a single word. Some people perceive life as being against them due to a small misunderstanding. But then time will make us realize that all these things become light when we know how to put them down. And one of the ways to put things down is to learn to live with kindness, to be compassionate to others and to ourselves. According to Buddhist teachings, the human mind is always influenced by greed, anger, and delusion. Tham, san, si. When greedy, we want to possess, to have more than we already do. When angry, we lose our temper and easily hurt others, as well as ourselves. When deluded, we are clouded, unable to see the true nature of things, and thus cause much suffering. The path of goodness is not to completely extinguish these elements, as they belong to the natural state of the mind, but to learn to understand them, to view them with a mindful eye, and then to tame them. The Buddha taught that when the mind is at peace, everything is at peace. When the mind is agitated, even amidst peaceful scenery, one still feels uneasy. Goodness, therefore, is not a manifestation of weakness, but a conscious choice of a mature mind. Many people still believe that kindness allows others to take advantage. They fear their honesty will become an opportunity for others to disrespect them. But those who have experienced the storms of life will understand that maintaining kindness amidst a competitive world is the hardest and most precious thing. Kindness does not equate to weakness. Patience does not mean defeat. Compassion is not self-abasement. These are the virtues of a person strong enough to view life with benevolent eyes and wise enough not to be swayed by fleeting emotions. People often react out of habit rather than understanding. When offended, we immediately want to retaliate to protect our ego. When misunderstood, we want to explain ourselves at all costs to prove our innocence. When we encounter someone behaving badly, we want them to suffer the consequences. But these reactions only burden our hearts further. When we are calm enough to choose not to retaliate, in those moments, we do not become weaker. In fact, we become stronger. Because only those who are strong enough can maintain their composure when facing injustice. There's an everyday story that illustrates this. It's the story of a taxi driver and a drunken passenger. That evening, the wind was strong and the streets were sparse. A drunken man stumbled into the car. As soon as the door closed, the passenger began to curse, yell, and insult the driver with harsh words. He complained about everything, from the car driving too slowly to the driver's silence. His face, red from alcohol, made his words even more uncontrolled. In the cramped car compartment, the listener felt suffocated by that unpleasant attitude. Yet, the driver maintained a calm demeanor. He didn't retaliate, nor did he show any irritation. He just focused on driving, keeping the journey safe. The hurtful words continued to be heaped upon him, but he didn't say a single word. When they reached the destination, the passenger stumbled out and walked away, unaware of the trouble he had caused. The next morning, the man returned to the taxi stand with a confused expression. The alcohol had worn off, and sobriety made him realize what he had done the night before. He approached the driver and apologized sincerely. The driver just smiled and replied, "I chose not to be angry, because if I get angry at someone who's wrong, then I'm also wrong." A simple statement, yet it contained so much understanding. The passenger, upon hearing this, could only bow his head in gratitude for receiving such compassion from a stranger. That story is gentle, but enough for each of us to reflect upon. Not everyone is calm enough to endure insults. Not everyone is magnanimous enough to overlook the mistakes of others when they have every reason to be angry. But when we can choose not to let another's anger burn within us, we are also preserving a space of peace for ourselves. Kindness, therefore, is not foolishness, but an understanding of life. Patience is not defeat, but a choice of wisdom. Compassion is not cowardice, but the warmth of a sufficiently large heart. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse that says, "By anger, anger is never overcome. By non-anger alone is anger overcome." When a person is angry, they are like someone holding a burning coal. If we pick up that coal to throw it back, we only burn ourselves. A person who knows how to live with kindness understands that life is already complicated enough and doesn't need to add more burdens to themselves. They don't try to prove they're right in every argument. They also don't need others to see them as a winner. They just want their mind to be at peace. After experiencing life's storms, people will cherish that peace even more. In truth, everyone wants to be a good person. Everyone wants to maintain their kindness. But life is not always easy. There are times when we are so tired that just a single word can hurt us. There are times when just a glance can make us lose our composure. But it is precisely because of this that each time we choose kindness, it becomes a time we overcome ourselves. Instead of reacting emotionally, we choose to react with understanding. Instead of letting anger control us, we choose to let compassion lead the way. Kindness thus becomes the path that leads us back to our gentlest nature. If you wish to cultivate kindness, you can practice a very small exercise. Whenever something makes you angry, stop for a few seconds. Place your hand on your chest and breathe deeply. Ask yourself if this truly matters. Consider what would happen if you retaliated right now, and ask yourself, after all is said and done, do you want to hold on to this in your heart or choose peace? Just a moment of stopping is enough to prevent you from saying or doing many things you might regret later. When you cultivate that habit, your heart will gradually become softer, and your wisdom will help you make wiser choices. When a person learns to live kindly, they will feel life much lighter. The things that once caused them pain now become easier to forgive. The things that once angered them now pass like a gentle breeze. Because when we understand that everyone carries their own unspoken sorrows, we will more easily overlook their less than perfect behaviors. Compassion, therefore, is no longer something we do for others, but a gift we give to ourselves. That gift is called peace. And I want to send you a gentle message. In life, everyone has their own wounds. Everyone has experienced tiring and precarious days. But if each day we can choose a small act of kindness, whether it's a smile, a kind word, or simply staying calm in an unpleasant situation, then this life will be much gentler. Remember that kindness is not foolishness, but the choice of someone who understands life. Patience is not defeat, but the strength of someone who knows how to keep peace in their heart. Compassion is not cowardice, but the light of a mature heart. May you always maintain kindness in every step you take, so that each day that passes is a day of peace and meaning. In life, every person goes through stages where they feel like a fragile leaf in a strong wind. Sometimes, just a small gust is enough to make us stumble. Sometimes, just a minor incident can make us so uneasy that we no longer believe in ourselves. People often say that life is constantly changing, impermanent, and nothing is immutable. Yet, when real change hits, we realize that our inner strength is weaker than we thought. Some people get discouraged by a small setback at work. Some feel like the whole world has turned its back on them after just one reproachful word from someone. Some, after a breakup, feel as if life has nothing left to offer. All these feelings are very real, very human, nothing to be ashamed of. But if we let ourselves drown in those emotions, we will never grow. In Buddhist teachings, there's a saying, if the mind is unstable, a small event becomes a storm. This may sound simple, but when contemplated deeply, it feels like a mirror reflecting our inner self. So often, the problem isn't the circumstance, but our own lack of inner strength. Like a young sapling, just one heavy rain can make its trunk sway. But if properly nourished, with deep roots in the earth, no matter the storm outside, it will stand firm. Humans are the same. When the mind is stable, external circumstances cannot easily sway us. When inner strength is robust, the challenges before us are merely lessons that help us grow. But to build that inner strength, we must accept going through life's arduous training process. None of us grow in absolute peace. No one becomes strong when everything is always smooth. And certainly, no one can keep their heart steady without having experienced precarious days. We have been weak, cried, wanted to give up, thought we weren't good enough, felt we couldn't do anything. These are the beginnings of the journey of self-training. It's like cracks in the earth, signaling a seedling trying to push its way up. Once, a Zen master said that one who fears suffering will never escape suffering. One who dares to look at suffering will find the path to peace. Many people found this strange, because who doesn't fear suffering? Who doesn't want their life to be smooth and pleasant? But upon deeper understanding, we realize that it is fear itself that prevents us from moving forward. It is the desire to avoid that keeps us weak. The more we avoid, the more suffering pursues us. The more we run, the more stuck our lives become. Perhaps that's why, in life, steadfast and strong people are often those who have gone through many thorns. They know they have overcome harder days, so they don't easily crumble before a new challenge. If we look deeply into the human psyche, we will see that weakness is not a nature, but a phase. It appears when we haven't learned to stand firm amidst impermanence. It arises when we haven't truly connected with our inner strength. Many of us grow up sheltered, supported by others, protected from overly difficult things. That helps us live a safe childhood, but leaves us bewildered when we grow up. Stepping out into the world, just a small bump, causes disappointment. Facing pressure, we easily feel inferior. When sadness strikes, we just want someone to rescue us. But the truth is, no one can save us forever. No one can take responsibility for our lives for us. A person who learns self-reliance is not someone who separates from the world. They're not cold or indifferent. They're simply someone who understands that even with loved ones by their side, the inner journey is still a solo journey. Even if parents, friends, and lovers always love us, they still cannot go through our own challenges for us. Similarly, in the teachings on karma, the Buddha always reminds us that each person must bear their own karma, not to instill fear, but to remind us that the process of growth must be embraced by ourselves. Others can only stand by, but they cannot practice for us, cannot suffer for us, cannot be sad for us, cannot grow for us. There is a very ordinary story, yet it contains many profound lessons about self-reliance and perseverance. It is the story of a boy learning to ride a bicycle. Almost everyone has experienced those wobbly days of learning to ride, but when we look back, we realize that journey is like everyone's journey of growth. The first day the boy learned to ride, his legs were still trembling. His hands gripped the handlebars, but he didn't know how to steer. The wheels wobbled back and forth, and soon he tumbled onto the ground. His knees were scraped, his eyes red from crying. His mother stood a few steps away, not rushing to help him up, just looking at him with calm and loving eyes. He looked at his mother, hoping she would come hug him, wipe away his tears, help him get back on the bike. But his mother just said a sentence that was soft, yet firm, gentle yet penetrating. "Stand up yourself." That sentence was not harsh, not scolding, not pushing. It was simply a reminder that this was something he had to do on his own. The boy burst into tears. The pain in his knees, combined with a feeling of injustice, made him want to give up immediately. But then he slowly put his hands on the ground and stood up by himself. He picked up the bike, trying to get on the pedals once more. This time, just like before, the bike wobbled and fell again. He fell again. It hurt again. He cried again. But each time he looked up, his mother was still there, still watching him with patience and trust, without a hint of the kind of pity that would make her want to hug him, to protect him, just a belief that her child could stand up on his own. So he fell again and again. Sometimes he was angry at his mother, thinking she didn't love him. Sometimes he was desperate, thinking he would never be able to ride a bike. Sometimes he almost wanted to throw the bike aside and run into the house. But each time disappointment passed. A small but powerful part within him pushed him to try again. And at one moment, when his feet pedaled steadily, when his hands maintained balance, when the bike began to roll smoothly, he suddenly realized he wasn't falling anymore. He rode the bike all over the yard, the wind blowing through his hair, his mouth wide in a smile. He felt like he had done something amazing. His mother watched, saying nothing, just smiling. That smile was the reward for both of them. If you pay attention, you will see that the greatest lesson in that story is not about knowing how to ride a bike, but about knowing how to get back up. If, when the boy fell, his mother had rushed to help him up immediately, he might still have learned to ride a bike, but would not have learned how to stand up after life's falls. His mother let him stand up by himself, not because she didn't love him, but because her love was enough not to make him weak. His mother let him hurt a little so that he would become strong forever. And the boy, after that experience, understood that no one could stand up for him. No one could be persistent for him. In the scriptures, there's a saying, "Be a light unto yourself, and walk your path." That is not only a teaching about self-cultivation, but also a reminder that on the journey of life, we must hold the lamp to light our own way. Others can give us a lamp, but we must take the steps ourselves. Others can show us the way, but we must walk it ourselves. Others can love us, worry about us, protect us, but they cannot live for us. The Buddha also said that the mind is like a lake. If the lake ripples at the mere dropping of a pebble, then the mind is not yet still enough. But if the lake is vast and deep, then even when a strong wind rushes in, the water beneath remains calm. Steadfastness is like that. It is not rigidity. It is not stubbornness. It is the strength of an inner self that has learned to stand firm amidst all changes. A steadfast person knows that life's storms are inevitable. And instead of wishing for the waves to subside, they learn to make their hearts expansive enough to embrace them. To cultivate that steadfastness, no grand things are needed. On the contrary, it begins with very small things in daily life. You can try a simple exercise today. When a problem makes you anxious, don't react immediately. Stop for 3 breaths. In those 3 breaths, practice observing your emotions without judgment. Observe the fear arising, the anger flaring up, the sadness welling up. Just observe, like watching clouds drifting across the sky. When you can stand in that position of observation, you will realize that emotions are just emotions. They are not you, and you are greater than your emotions. Gradually, stillness will form. From stillness, willpower is built. From willpower, steadfastness is nurtured. Another exercise you can do is to set a small task each day and complete it. Just one task, like tidying your workspace, drinking enough water, walking for 10 minutes, writing a page in a journal, or reading a chapter of a book. Each time you complete that small goal, you're telling yourself, I can do it. That belief accumulates over time and becomes a very great inner strength. A steadfast person is not someone who never wavers, but someone who knows how to return to their goal, even if they have been swept away by life. A little each day, and you will find yourself becoming more stable. The Enlightened Dharma channel wants to send you a gentle message. The journey of life is never without challenges. But challenges come not to defeat you, but to help you realize the strength within yourself. Each time you get up after a fall, you are becoming a better version of yourself. Each time you don't give up, you are rewriting your destiny. And each time you choose to move forward, you are proving that your mind has strengthened a little. Remember that in this life, everyone must sometimes walk alone. But being alone is not loneliness. Being alone is when you see yourself most clearly. When you no longer rely on anyone else, you truly understand how deep your strength is. When you learn to rise from pain, you truly know how steadfast you are. And when you navigate impermanence with a mind as steady as a mountain, you will see that life's storms are merely passing winds. You are strong enough to get through difficult days. You are patient enough to train yourself, and you are brave enough to keep going, even when life's path is sometimes arduous. As long as you don't let go, life will definitely open a new path. Believe in yourself, like a mother believed in her child learning to ride a bicycle. Believe that you can get up after every stumble. Believe that you were born to be strong. Believe that you deserve to walk your own path with a peaceful, steadfast, and luminous heart. There are days when, sitting quietly for a long time amidst life's uncertainties, we realize that most human suffering arises from the way we perceive things. The ancients often said that the scenery is inherently still. But if the mind moves, the scenery moves. The scenery is inherently peaceful. But if the mind is troubled, the scenery also becomes troubled. Human life is inherently impermanent. Joys and sorrows change morning and evening. Success and failure come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. In that flow, who can stand outside the ups and downs? The only thing we can do is learn to see life correctly, so as not to be swept by its waves into unnecessary afflictions. The deeper we see life, the lighter our hearts become. The broader we see life, the more peaceful our minds become. The clearer we see life, the firmer our steps become amidst the sea of human suffering. The Buddhist philosophies of impermanence always remind us that everything is merely a combination of conditions that then dissolve. What comes will come. What goes, just let it go. But to live that way, one needs a perspective far enough not to get caught up in small matters, a perspective deep enough not to be misled by external glamour, and a perspective clear enough not to tie oneself down in the winds of afflictions. These three ways of seeing are like three levels of enlightenment. When a person knows how to see far, they are no longer pulled down by trivial sorrows. When they know how to see deeply, they are no longer confused by life's outward appearances. When they know how to see clearly, their minds are no longer bound by invisible suffering. And when the mind is liberated, life naturally becomes as light as clouds drifting across the wide sky. Buddhist teachings say that people often suffer because they cling to the ego and because they do not see the true nature of things. We always think that a certain event is too serious, too unfair, or too difficult to overcome. But that is only because we stand too close to the suffering. So we cannot see the whole path ahead. Just like looking at a painting. If you put your face too close, you only see messy brush strokes and cannot see the whole picture. When you step back a little, the painting naturally becomes clear. Life is the same. Everything needs perspective. With perspective, there is a broader view. With a broader view, there is clarity, so as not to become a victim of fate. The human mind inherently desires everything to happen as it wishes. We want work to flow smoothly, for our loved ones to always stay by our side, for life to be favorable. But life does not always comply with our desires. When undesirable things appear, our minds immediately contract, and anger, sadness, and fear begin. It is for this reason that so much suffering arises. Humans are disappointed because they expect too much. Humans are tired because they view life through a narrow lens. Humans suffer because they cannot let go of things that are no longer suitable for them. The more the mind clings, the more confused it becomes. The more confused the mind, the harder it is to see clearly. That is the cycle of afflictions. Someone asked the enlightened Dharma channel, "In this life, how should one see things so as not to be overwhelmed by adversity?" I just smiled and said, "Everything originates from each person's mind. When the mind is clear, life is clear. When the mind is unhindered, every task is easy." The three perspectives I am about to talk about are not some miraculous techniques. They are just ways to help us live more lightly in a world that is always changing. They're seeing far, seeing deeply, and seeing clearly. Each perspective is a step that helps us get closer to inner peace. Seeing far means knowing how to distance yourself from the things that are making you tired to see the bigger picture. When we see far, we are no longer caught up in small matters. Someone's unintentional words, unpleasant judgments, mistakes we accidentally made, none of these will keep us awake at night anymore, because we understand that these trivial things are just passing winds. Though they may ripple the surface of the water, they cannot change the entire ocean. A person who knows how to see far is someone who knows what to keep and what to let go of. They don't waste time on useless arguments. They don't dwell on things that will be meaningless a few days later. They know there are bigger things to do ahead, more important goals to pursue. That's why their hearts are light, and their steps are free. Seeing deeply is the ability to look beyond the surface to see the true nature of things. In a society full of falsehoods, many illusions of success and happiness, people are easily drawn into meaningless races. We see others with bigger houses, better cars, stable jobs, and then think they're happier than us. But we don't know that behind those bright appearances are countless accumulated worries. We see others laughing and talking cheerfully and think they are enjoying life. But some smiles are just masks hiding sadness. A person who knows how to see deeply is not fooled by superficialities. They understand that everything exists only through conditioned arising. They don't foolishly chase after external things. They know that true value lies within each person's mind. When we see this deeply, we no longer compare, no longer envy, no longer feel inferior. We see life as much lighter. Seeing clearly is the final step, and also the most difficult. Seeing clearly means not letting the mind be bound by afflictions. When a sad event occurs, someone who hasn't learned to see clearly will immediately immerse themselves in it, repeating negative thoughts and exhausting themselves. But a person who knows how to see clearly will understand that everything will eventually pass. They don't run from sadness, but they also don't let it consume them. They give themselves time to feel, to understand, and then to gently put it down. Seeing clearly is when you remember that story, but no longer feel pain. Still see that suffering, but are no longer tormented by it. That is a sign of a tranquil mind. To further clarify these three perspectives, I want to tell you the story of a farmer. A seemingly simple story, yet it contains a profound lesson about wisdom in the face of adversity. This farmer lived in a small village, connected year-round to his family's rice field. Every rice season, he diligently plowed, sowed seeds, watered, and hoped for a bountiful harvest to support his wife and children. Year after year, he used his own hands to nurture the land, seeing it as the lifeblood of his entire family. However, that year, heavy rains poured continuously for weeks. Water from everywhere flowed in, flooding his fields. The young rice shoots, barely rooted, were swept away. The growing rice plants were submerged to the point of root rot. In just a few days, the entire rice field that he had worked on for months was completely washed away. A total loss. You can imagine that feeling. All efforts poured into one season, all hopes placed on those rice grains. Then, in an instant, a natural disaster swept through, and nothing was left. Who wouldn't be sad? Who wouldn't be disappointed? Who wouldn't feel victimized? But what surprised the villagers was that he didn't complain as they expected. He stood before his flooded field for a long time, took a deep breath, and then returned home. He didn't blame the sky, didn't blame the earth. He simply said that natural disasters are things humans cannot control. Being sad wouldn't change anything. The way he faced loss was truly unusual. That was his seeing far perspective. He knew that losing a harvest was something no one wanted, but human life isn't just about one instance of suffering. If he kept holding on to sadness, he wouldn't be able to get back up and start over. Seeing far helped him understand that natural disasters don't only happen to him. Seeing far helped him know that life is long. With many more opportunities to sow seeds again, seeing far prevented his mind from being trapped in temporary suffering. When night fell, he sat on his porch, looking out at the still flooded field. Others would blame heaven for not having mercy. But he told himself that blame was useless. Blaming wouldn't dry the field, and complaining wouldn't make the rice grow. The only thing he could do was accept and adapt to the circumstances. That was his seeing deeply perspective. He saw deeply into the nature of the problem, understanding that getting stuck in resentment only weighed down his heart. And the only way forward was to calmly stand still, think, and find a new direction. After a few days, he began to find solutions. He met with more experienced farmers, asking them about rice varieties that could better withstand flooding. He went to the cooperative to inquire about crop insurance. Then he changed his planting methods, improving the drainage system of his field to prepare for future storms. He used the difficulty itself to teach him how to be stronger. That was his seeing clearly perspective. He didn't let adversity bind him, but allowed adversity to help him grow. His mind was clear, so his life was light. And then, the next year, the weather was favorable, and the field with the new rice variety he had chosen began to flourish. When harvest season came, he had the biggest harvest in many years. The villagers said that heaven had favored him, but I think that before heaven favored him, his own mind had already shown kindness to itself. When the mind is clear, opportunities naturally find their way. When the heart is expansive, good fortune easily visits. His seeing far, seeing deeply, and seeing clearly perspectives carried him through a challenging year to reach a bountiful harvest that not everyone has the patience to wait for. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a saying, "The mind remains steadfast amidst life's myriad changes." Life is always moving, always changing. But if the mind possesses clarity, then no matter the circumstances, we will not lose ourselves. The Buddha once taught that all suffering has a cause. If we find the cause and see it clearly, we will find a way out. A wise person understands that nothing lasts forever, not even suffering. Everything will eventually pass. Just like water flowing through rocky crevices, though sometimes powerful, sometimes turbulent, it eventually becomes gentle when it meets a wide riverbed. The human mind is the same. The broader it is, the easier it is to find peace. If you want to practice these three perspectives in your daily life, you can try a very simple exercise. Whenever something makes you sad, angry, or worried, stop for 1 minute and ask yourself 3 questions. The first question is, will this matter still be important after a month or a year? If the answer is no, gently put it down. That is, seeing far. The second question is, what is the true nature of this situation? Am I being led by emotion, or am I seeing the truth correctly? Seeing the true nature is seeing deeply into the problem. The third question is, am I making myself suffer more? If yes, find a way to step out of the negative cycle. That is, seeing clearly. Just practicing these 3 questions every day, your mind will gradually become clearer. You will no longer react hastily. You will no longer let emotions control you. You will begin to weigh what is worth keeping and what should be allowed to pass. And from there, life will become lighter in ways you never expected. I want to send you a very gentle message. Life is already rushed enough. Don't force yourself to hold on for too long. Practice seeing far, so as not to be held back by small matters. Practice seeing deeply, so as not to be misled by life's appearances. And practice seeing clearly so that your mind can be free. When the mind is clear, the path ahead is also clear. When the mind is at peace, the things that come to us become easier. May you, in the days to come, know how to walk with composure, unburdened by anything too heavy. May you always keep an open inner self and a clear heart. For when the mind is as light as a cloud, life will naturally be much more beautiful. There are mornings when, before the sunlight even touches the window, we are already caught up in worries and plans. We often think about the things we haven't achieved, the things we still lack, the things that aren't going our way, and then inadvertently overlook a truth. Every moment unfolding in the present is a fragile, precious miracle. Life is inherently impermanent. Every breath in and out, every steady step, every laugh echoing in the house, these are things that cannot be bought with anything. When we know that, we understand that happiness is never found in grand things, but in the most ordinary aspects of life. But in our rush, people rarely realize this. Buddhist teachings always mention impermanence as a gentle reminder. When we know that anything can change, we slow down and appreciate more. A healthy body today does not mean it will remain the same tomorrow. A loved one who smiles with us today does not guarantee their presence next year. A simple meal, a small house, a peaceful afternoon, watching clouds drift by. These are actually blessings that many people earnestly long for, but do not possess. Impermanence is not meant to frighten us, but to awaken us, to help us understand that life is precious from the simplest things. To ensure we don't go through a single day without feeling grateful that we still have enough karmic connection to continue experiencing this life. Many people ask why, in an era of abundant material possessions, people suffer more mentally. When we look deeply into the psyche, we see that suffering does not come from what we lack, but from comparison and bottomless craving. We look at others who have bigger houses, better cars, more stable jobs, and then ask ourselves why we are not like them. We look at the lives of successful people on social media and unconsciously create pressure for ourselves. The more we look outwards, the more uneasy our minds become. Because the mind has no stopping point, desires grow, and dissatisfaction increases accordingly. In Buddhist Dharma, this is called the mind of craving. The mind always gravitates towards distant things, forgetting that what we already have is a great blessing. When we keep chasing after what we lack, we lose the ability to recognize the things that are silently supporting us every day. Gratitude is the cure for this disease of comparison. When we are grateful, we stop to look within ourselves, to realize that we are not as empty as we thought. We have breath, feet to walk, hands to work, loved ones to return to, meals to eat, a roof over our heads to shelter from the sun and rain. If you wake up healthy in the morning and can get out of bed on your own, you are already fortunate. If you can still see the morning light, hear birds outside your window, you are more blessed than millions of people in the world. If you can still call your parents or have someone waiting for you at home to share a meal, you are much richer than you imagine. And only when we understand this deeply will our hearts truly settle. There's a story that I believe will make you see life through different eyes. It's the story of an old man who suffered a stroke. He used to be the pillar of his family, strong and clear-headed. The stroke struck on an ordinary afternoon, without warning. When they took him to the hospital, he couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't sit up by himself. In an instant, his life and that of his entire family changed. In the early days, doctors said his chances of recovery were very low. The family prepared themselves for the possibility that he might never walk again. During that time, every day was a battle for him. From a man who once walked with strong steps, he had to relearn everything from holding a spoon, lifting an arm, moving little by little. Month after month, his children and grandchildren took turns bringing him to physical therapy. They saw the drops of sweat rolling down his forehead as he tried to lift his leg just a few inches. When he was tired, he would tremble, his eyes red with pain. But he didn't give up. He said in slurred, unclear words that as long as there was a glimmer of hope, he still wanted to try. Then one morning, when everyone thought today would be like any other ordinary day, what everyone had been waiting for months finally happened. He stood up with the help of a walker. His body was still weak. His legs still trembled. But he was standing. And then he took a small step, then another. As his second step touched the ground, he burst into tears. A man who had lived a full life, who had been through countless storms, still couldn't hold back his tears. He said with emotion that just being able to take 2 steps was a miracle. His children and grandchildren, standing around, also cried with him. They looked at him as if he were a miracle. It turned out that walking, which we do every day, is not something to be taken for granted. It turned out that the most ordinary things are the most precious. At that moment, everyone understood that life can take many things from us, but as long as we have a small chance to continue, we can still find joy. Life becomes complete when we learn to cherish what is still present. The saying in Buddhist scriptures, "One who knows contentment is the richest person," has never been wrong. The Buddha once taught that happiness comes from a grateful heart, from the ability to recognize what we possess, instead of focusing solely on what we lack. When we know that a human body is hard to obtain, when we know that every day we can still breathe is a blessing, we will no longer feel unfortunate. That teaching is simple, but deeply ingrained in life. Because a grateful heart can resolve resentment, minimize comparison, and expand inner peace. In every scripture, we find a reminder. Live as if there is no tomorrow. Cherish today as the most precious gift life bestows. Practicing gratitude is not something grand. We don't need to change our entire lives to become grateful. We just need to stop for a moment, each day, breathe gently, and write down 3 things we feel grateful for. It could be that we are healthy, a hot meal, a text message from a friend, or that the weather is beautiful today, and we can admire the sky. When we write down 3 things we are grateful for, our minds tend to shift from scarcity to abundance. We will see that life is not as heavy as we thought. We will realize that we are not alone, not empty, not unfortunate. On the contrary, we are loved and protected in a very simple way that sometimes we don't realize. And then, by practicing this every day, we will begin to observe life with gentler eyes. We will see that nothing is small if we look at it with gratitude. We will see that we have people to love, a place to return to, the ability to work, time to rest. All are blessings. We will understand that happiness has never left us. It's just that we haven't been mindful enough to see it. And gratitude is the door that leads us back to that stillness. If you are going through a difficult period, gently close your eyes and think of 3 things you have right now. You may not have much, but you certainly don't have nothing. Just realizing that, your heart will feel half lighter. All the ordinary things present around you are supporting you to continue your journey. Life always has its ups and downs, but gratitude helps us stand firm and walk peacefully. When you are grateful, you will find yourself no longer wanting to compete, no longer wanting to win or lose, no longer wanting to blame or resent. Gratitude makes us more mature, gentler, and more complete. It helps us understand that the most precious things are what we have, the people who are still accompanying us, the opportunities that are still open ahead. No matter how much everything changes, a grateful heart will always find light in the darkness. If there's one message for you right now, I just want to say, slow down a little to feel life. Be grateful for the ordinary things you take for granted. Cherish your breath. Cherish your body. Cherish your home. Cherish the people who silently love you. Remember that as long as you are present here, you are already a miracle. There are very peaceful evenings. Looking at the last rays of sunlight falling on the roof, we suddenly realize that time has never stopped to wait for anyone. Life operates according to the rhythm of impermanence. Everything will eventually flow away, change, and end precisely when we are not yet ready. People often say that youth is like a sudden rain shower. When you're caught in the cold, you want to run as fast as you can for shelter. But when you're old, you wish you could stand in that rain one more time to feel all the things you once considered bothersome. Time never turns back, and neither does regret. It only comes when we see what we once lost, but can no longer touch. Therefore, the journey of letting go and returning to oneself is not just about healing old wounds, but also about preventing oneself from falling into future regrets. People often only appreciate what they've lost, value what's too late, and regret what cannot be undone. But to live like that is too long for sorrow and too short for joy. And how many times in life do we get to start over? From a Buddhist perspective, regret arises from 3 main roots in the human mind. First is ignorance, which is the lack of understanding of the true nature of life. When we don't understand impermanence, we think everything will last forever. So we postpone our dreams, postpone love, postpone even the things we know we need to do. When everything changes, and we can no longer hold on to anything, we regret and blame ourselves. The second root is fear, an emotion that makes people stand still, even when their heart tells them to move forward. Fear of failure, fear of poverty, fear of others' ridicule, fear of not being good enough. It is fear that turns us into bystanders in our own lives. The final root is craving. Because we want safety, stability, certainty, we choose the path with the fewest obstacles, inadvertently missing the path that stirs our hearts. Regret thus grows naturally within the heart. According to Buddhist teachings, regret is a form of mental suffering, and suffering only stops when we dare to look directly at impermanence, accept it, and act in the present moment. If we understand the changing nature of life, we will no longer foolishly let precious years drift by, hoping for a better day. Only right now is the true opportunity. The human psyche is inherently complex. On the journey of growth, everyone has at least once sat alone in the night and wondered why they weren't braver, more decisive, more wholeheartedly committed at the moment something needed to be done. Regret often doesn't come from things we did, but from things we didn't do. Missed opportunities, loving words we shyly kept hidden, dreams locked away in the cramped room of what is called safety. When faced with choices, people often worry more about the outcome than daring to fully experience. We hesitate because we fear making mistakes, but we don't realize that mistakes are also a part of life. By not daring to step forward for fear of failure, we inadvertently deny ourselves the chance to succeed. Then, when we see others succeed, we turn back to blame ourselves and plant another seed of sadness in our hearts. Regret is a heavy feeling because it pulls us from the present and traps us in the past. But the more we avoid it, the tighter it binds us. Only when we dare to face, accept, and act will the mind feel lighter. To understand this more clearly, perhaps we need a story that serves as a mirror reflecting life very truthfully. It is the story of a young man who, at 18, dreamed of becoming a designer. At that age, people often carry enthusiasm and dreams big enough to illuminate an entire sky. He was no exception. He loved to draw, loved to create, loved to see an idea in his head become something that truly existed in the world. Yet these dreams were met with many fears. He feared disappointing his family, feared choosing a precarious path. He feared poverty and an uncertain future. Someone once told him that art couldn't sustain oneself, so he believed it. He folded up his youthful dream, tucked it away deep in a drawer, and chose a stable job to please everyone. Life went on like that. He still lived, still worked, still fulfilled his responsibilities, but something inside him grew increasingly empty. Every time he saw someone else succeed in a creative field, he would sigh, not out of envy, but because he himself had once wanted to be like them, but lacked the courage. He often told himself, "If only I hadn't been afraid. If only I had tried a little harder. If only I had believed in my own dream." But these if only thoughts only made him feel heavier. He repeated his monotonous life through years where his heart always held a smoldering void, until one day, looking back, he realized that time had moved too far from his dream. New wrinkles around his eyes were a reminder that no one stays young forever, to keep procrastinating. So he decided to relearn from the beginning, despite no longer being at an age where starting over was easy. He worked during the day and studied at night. He practiced drawing every line he had forgotten for so long. He bought the materials he had dreamed of owning at 18. Difficulties piled up, hardships increased, sometimes making him so tired he wanted to give up. But this time, he didn't run away. He knew he was doing what his heart had longed for so many years. And finally, those efforts bore fruit. He was accepted into a design company and did the very job that had made his 18-year-old eyes light up. He no longer had to live with sighs every time he saw others succeed. When asked what made him so persistent, he just smiled and said that the most terrifying thing in life is not failure, but living an entire life with regret. That very statement served as a wake-up call for anyone still wavering between dreams and fears. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a saying that human life is as impermanent as a dewdrop on a blade of grass, just seen, then vanished. A human body is hard to obtain, and life is short, so regret is an immense waste. The Buddha taught that the past is gone and cannot be changed. The future has not yet come and cannot be controlled. Only the present moment is where we truly live. Understanding this is the key to ending regret, when the mind no longer chases after what is past. When we learn to cherish this breath, this moment, and the choices before us, we will live more fully and completely. In a Dharma talk, a Zen master once said that the wise person does not ask whether tomorrow will be good. They only ask, "Have I lived well today?" Regret begins with living superficially in the present. Therefore, to stop it, we must learn to live more deeply each day. To help the listener apply this immediately, we can practice a very simple exercise. Every evening, before going to bed, sit in silence for about 5 minutes, place your hand on your chest, and ask yourself 3 questions. First, did I do anything today that made my soul happier? Second, did I avoid anything today that I should have done because of fear? Third, if tomorrow never comes, what would I regret most? When you answer truthfully, you will clearly see what you are missing out on. Afterwards, write down the smallest thing you can do the next day to avoid continued regret. It might be calling a relative you haven't seen in a long time, reading a page from a book you've always postponed, or starting to relearn a skill that once made you happy. Just one small action each day, and you will have taken a long step beyond regret. Most importantly, don't keep procrastinating. If something makes your heart skip a beat, try it. If there's something you've wanted to do for a long time, start. Because time doesn't wait, and this life is yours, not fear's. I just want to send you a gentle message. Life doesn't give us many chances to start over, but it always gives us the opportunity to begin. Don't wait until one day you look back and ask yourself why you weren't braver. Don't let your youth pass in laziness or pessimism. And certainly, don't let the end of life be marked by 2 words, if only. Live a truly complete life so that when you stand at the end of the road, you can smile and say that you lived fully in every moment. No need to be perfect, just be authentic and whole with yourself. Because a life without regret is the greatest gift we can give ourselves. There is a philosophy that the ancients often reminded us of. Human life is like a river, sometimes flowing peacefully through fields, sometimes raging with waves in a storm, sometimes clear, sometimes murky. All are just the natural operation of impermanence. Nothing stands still, and nothing belongs to us forever. When one understands this, one stops struggling to hold on to old things and can smile and move forward on their journey. We are nearing the end of this long conversation. And as we stop here, perhaps you will realize one thing. Letting go has never been losing something, but rather returning. returning to peace, to your breath, to yourself, like a house always open for you to find refuge. After exhausting days in life, we often think that letting go means separating from something. But from a Buddhist perspective, letting go means seeing the true nature of all things and no longer being pulled by desires or unreal pains. Letting go is not being cold or indifferent. Letting go is knowing that everything has its conditions. When conditions are met, things come together. When conditions end, they disperse. And our task is not to stubbornly cling to what is no longer suitable, but to keep our mind steadfast amidst that changing flow. The Buddha once taught that the cause of suffering is not the external world, but how our minds cling and attach to every experience. When we know how to detach from clinging, suffering naturally dissolves. Just like a hand grasping a handful of sand, the tighter you squeeze, the more sand falls out. Only by relaxing your grip can you truly retain a sense of lightness. If you look deeply into the human psyche, you will realize that most of our suffering stems from fear. Fear of loss, fear of being left behind, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved, fear of facing things alone. It is this fear that makes us cling to relationships that are no longer healthy, cling to places that are no longer meant for us, cling to roles that exhaust us. Each time fear arises, we try to fill the void with external things. But the more we fill, the emptier the mind becomes. A person is truly at peace only when they can accept that they are complete enough, self-reliant enough, and wise enough to navigate storms without losing their self-worth. Just like a tree that knows how to root deeply in the earth, no matter how strong the wind, the trunk stands firm because the roots are deep enough. Our minds also need such a root. That root is the peace built from within, not by anyone else. I want to tell you a small story. Once upon a time, a traveler journeyed through a forest, carrying a very heavy bag on his shoulder. After a while, he met a Zen master sitting by a tree. Seeing the weary traveler, the Zen master asked why he didn't put his bag down instead of carrying such a heavy burden. The traveler replied that he couldn't let it go because the bag contained many important things. The Zen master smiled kindly and said, "Open your bag and see what is truly necessary in there." The traveler complied, and when he opened it, he discovered that there were too many old, broken, and superfluous things. But for a long time, he had carried them, thinking he might need them someday. As he discarded the unnecessary items, his shoulders lightened, and his steps became gentler. The Zen master only added one more sentence. Human life is like this bag. If we are not mindful enough, we will carry countless unnecessary things. And these very things cause us suffering. In reality, letting go is not losing, but clearing the path for peace to return. That story is very close to Buddhist teachings. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once taught that a pure mind is the foundation of all happiness. One who keeps their mind light like clouds in the sky, unburdened by anger, delusion, afflictions, or fear, will always walk lightly through life. Many patriarchs also reminded us that to find peace, we must learn to cast off the burdens within our own minds. One Zen master once said that letting go truly begins when we accept that everything has happened exactly as it was meant to happen. And when we no longer resist reality, the mind naturally becomes peaceful. To make letting go no longer an abstract concept, but something you can feel in your life, I want to give you a small exercise. This exercise is very gentle, and you can practice it today. Find a quiet space and sit in a comfortable position. Close your eyes and bring your full attention to your breath. As you inhale, fully recognize the air entering your chest. As you exhale, imagine you are putting down a burden that you have carried for too long. One by one, name each thing that makes you tired. It could be an old relationship, a certain pressure, an unhealed pain. Then, with your exhale, release it from your mind, not trying to push it away, just relaxing and letting it go. After a few minutes, you will feel a lightness gradually spreading in your chest. And that is the beginning of letting go. A simple exercise like that, but if you practice it every day, your mind will gradually become clearer and more mindful. Once you have completed the journey of letting go, you will realize a sacred truth. All the suffering that once brought you to tears was actually just leading you back to yourself. When the mind is cleansed of afflictions, life naturally softens. When you stop clinging to those who no longer accompany you, your heart naturally lightens. And when you understand that peace does not come from controlling the world, but from understanding your own mind, your path ahead becomes clearer than ever. No matter how difficult life becomes, no matter if there are days when it feels like everything is against you, you always have a place to return to, your inner self. Within each person is a silent sanctuary, without noise, without storms. As long as you choose to return, all weariness will be soothed. Before concluding, I want to send you a few very sincere words. I hope this journey has helped you understand yourself better. I hope you are peaceful enough to go through life's inevitable challenges. I hope you are brave enough to let go of what no longer belongs to you and keep what helps you grow. I hope you treat yourself with the same love you would a dearest friend, because only when you know how to love yourself can you smile gently at the changes in life. And finally, I hope you always remember one important thing. Letting go is not an end, but a door opening to a new journey filled with freedom and peace. When the meditation bell rings at the end of this video, let that sound gently touch your mind. See it as a reminder that you have come a long way and are mature enough to stand firm on your own path. From this moment on, you can return to the peaceful home within your mind, a place no one can take away, and where you will always find yourself.